Hello, it's Rafael Gutierrez. Welcome to our channel. And today I'm actually going to talk about something I mentioned before, which a couple people were really uh, curious about, it seemed. People who sent me or told me about it. They hadn't, some people had not heard of the Hero's Quest by Joseph Campbell. And what I did is I found that there's a couple variations of it. I actually remember his being something like 9 stages, but I found everywhere from 9 to 10 to 14. And so I decided I actually would use the 10 stages because it really does work pretty nicely with the pretty much how the pretty much a belt ranking system would work up to a black belt, let's say. And Joseph Campbell actually had a lot of interesting things to say. One of the things was that, as in the modern world, we have actually lost our rituals. Now, for those of us who are in martial arts, we actually see that we have rituals, which we do a lot of them every day. Some of them actually anytime someone gets a ring, and these rituals vary and change depending on dojo. Actually, from dojo to dojo, sometimes you have the same style, same head instructors, but the dojos do something slightly different. And so I'm going to use a generic one, and when I say generic, I mean mine because that's one I'm more familiar with. Those are the schools the school I teach at. And I really, when I actually talked about it, and when I started really thinking about this, one of the things that did happen is I am in the middle of teaching, actually beginning to teach a new semester, a summer class at City College in martial arts, and it made me think about this a bit more. Now, one of the first steps that Joseph Campbell talks about in his Hero's Quest is the hero in the ordinary world. Now, if you're like me, your ordinary world is going to work, eating lunch, eating dinner, and that's it. I actually, when I did the trip to Okinawa, which I usually talk about in Serious and the Rare Things, it's also available in Spanish as Flor de Pitaya y las cosas más preciosas. I didn't really think about Joseph Campbell. I just thought, hey, I wanted to kind of write the story of going to Belize, but I did see that, yes, if I take Joseph Campbell's idea of the monomyth, I actually can see these things. So, if we think of the ordinary world, and we're going to start with someone who hasn't started martial arts yet, their ordinary world. They go out, they eat, they hang out with friends, and sometimes people just think, something's missing. Some of the times what they feel is missing is when they were a kid, they were in martial arts, they really liked it, and they had to leave for many different reasons. Maybe they moved and they just got stuck. Maybe they went to high school and they just felt like they couldn't deal with the stresses of high school and the martial art world. But for some reason, as we actually go in our normal ordinary world, some people get called to something, and that it may be that someone thinks of something, maybe has a midlife crisis, like the gentleman who did Looking for Mr. Miyagi had actually mentioned. Some of them actually, it might be, hey, you walk by a martial arts studio and you think, why not? Some of us, it could be many different things that we can actually think about, which are the reasons that we get called for this. Either way, for some reason, we get called to the whole idea of, I want to do something different. And you see the martial arts school. Maybe you look at it, maybe you have a friend who does it, but something about it makes you cross the threshold. And when you cross the threshold, you decide to walk in. Most places will give you, 2 weeks free to try, see if it's what you enjoy. And that actually is a big thing. That is a really big step that most people don't even take. A lot of people go through their normal lives and they think, maybe it'd be nice. I'm too old, I'm this, whatever. But the truth is, you're never really too old for the whole idea of starting in martial arts or starting your adventure. This is your call. This is a call. It's actually when you actually see the thing and you finally, the step 3 is when you finally walk in and you decide, okay, you're going to try it out. And you sign up for your 2 weeks class. And you try it. It might be that it's not for you. And you decide, well, after the first 2 weeks, you shake the person's hand, say thank you. I'm going to think about it, and that's it. Other times, you may say, you know what, this is for me. I'm going to go and take the next step. Now, once you cross over that threshold, you now are involved in the trials. Now, what we mean by this is you're going to be pushed in different directions. Now, you think about it. If you're doing martial arts, you're you're going to be buying a weird uniform, which, by the way, what's his name, Campbell, actually said when you put on a uniform, you actually become a different person, and you understand that. And that actually is something. It's a ritual when you put on that uniform. That's your first ritual to let you know that you have started something. Now, a lot of people say, "Well, no, we don't use the gi. We use a t-shirt and shorts." Well, that's your uniform. It doesn't have to be a gi. If you actually look on this, you may see things that I actually mentioned of the benefits of a gi. But if you don't use it, that's fine. The idea is you actually are now trying. You're actually pushing yourself to do things, and you may end up getting, a ninth cue, a eighth cue. Now, all these are your trials, and you're making friends along the way. Sometimes you will actually do sparring, and in sparring, some people will say, "Oh, well, this guy's you're the person who's competing against you," but in reality, it's your friend. Your biggest foe becomes what you see when you look into the mirror. The person who's going to tell you what you can and can't do, why you're too old to do it, why you can't do it, why you're just not in shape to do it. Well, all the excuses that you give to yourself for why you can't move up in martial arts. It's you. You're your biggest foe, and a lot of people actually do tell you this. Now, as you're going through this, you have step 5, which is usually when you meet the mentor. Well, a lot of times a mentor can be the head instructor. Your sensei, he might be your mentor. Sometimes it's not quite like that. Sometimes you have another student, maybe it's another black student who's actually a black belt, who's helping you out a lot. He becomes your mentor. We sometimes call them senpais to say, well, this is someone I respect, and he's helping me out, so I'm going to give him I'm going to call him my senpai because he's helping me out. That's your mentor. That's the person who's actually helping. Then you finally get to step 6. Now, if you think of the ranks, first 3, 9th, 8th, 7th, you're actually beginning. On 9th, 8th, 7th, on 6th cue, you actually start getting to the next level. So you actually start getting to brown belt. This is actually where you start really understanding that you're learning something different. Now, it may not be anything you're going to use in your outside world, but it doesn't matter. You start actually seeing that you're beginning to actually get into this. And for some reason, between brown and black, people start actually getting these moments of panic. Actually, usually in brown, I remember one of my students, this little girl who I used to teach, had the best way to actually say it. She said as she reached her brown belt, she felt like all of a sudden she was stuck in the mud. It's like brown is a perfect color. I'm in the mud. I can't move. I'm trying to move forward, but everything just seems to be something difficult. And that's actually one of the big things is, yes, the aspect of it being difficult is actually important for us in martial arts. We don't want it to be easy. We don't want our ranks to be like, hey, I got it. I'm awesome. I didn't really do anything for it. It just came. We want rank to mean something for us. I try to tell my students, for instance, if they have a green belt, I tell them, if you lose your green belt, it doesn't mean you've lost what you've learned. It's a belt. It's a piece of cotton, which just represents that I understand where you're at. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. And as people continue to go through this, eventually they will get to a place where they will get their shodan. Now, it may not happen the first time. It may not happen the second time. It may not happen right away, but they'll actually work for their shodan. Now, this is assuming that your black belt, your first degree black belt, means something to you. A lot of people kind of seem to pretty much cheapen what a black belt means, saying, well, it's just the beginning. You don't really know enough to do anything. Well, for me, my thing is, black belt, the shodan, is meant to be the first level of a professional. So I actually believe that a black belt means a lot. In fact, I've actually seen that a lot of people who are first degree black belts who know more about martial arts than some people who are really high. You have to remember, a black belt does not correlate between style to style. So I am using, again, my view of black belt based on the way I saw it. Black belt was a big thing. And after the despair, the next step, what they call step number 8 in some places, is the ultimate treasure, the sword, the knowledge. That's actually the big thing. Now, you gain your knowledge, you test, and you win. And they hand you the big shiny black belt. And now you walk home. And you go in your normal life, and you start looking around. And maybe you tell a friend of yours that, oh, I earned my black belt. And some of them don't understand it. They can't. They've never gone through this journey themselves. They haven't gone through the ritual of gaining a black belt, of everything that happens within the black belt. Actually, for a lot of schools, when you do get your first black belt, they make a big deal of it. It's yes, you're now part of us. Not us as in the dojo, you've always been part of it, but you're now actually one of the people who's on the higher half, at least, of the dojo. That's the ultimate treasure. And yet at the same time, when you go home, on step 9, when you go out and start talking, most people don't understand. You find yourself at that point where, well, sad to say is most people don't understand what it's like to earn something that you can't just buy. I mean, you think about it, a lot of people, it's like, well, they may have a lot of money, but the money actually doesn't represent anything to them. It's just, well, I have money, I can go buy what I want, and that's it. A black belt, a lot of them don't understand that. Yes, you could go to a martial arts supply store, give your $5 and get yourself a cheap black belt. But the idea that you've actually gone through these paths, this pretty much hero's quest, this hero's journey, and earned your black belt is something that nobody can take away from it. And a lot of times when you start looking at this, you start realizing that some of the friends that you have that are not in martial arts will never understand it. Ironically, what I found is my girlfriend, she was really big into dance. She understands what a black belt means to me and why. She earned where she was in dance. I've met people who have actually played professional or semi-professional sports, and they understand, oh, you actually got to a specific level that it means something because of the journey that you took on. It's not just a, hey, I made this and that's, I paid a couple $100 or $1,000 and I got a black belt. And there are some people who do, and that's actually the thing that I will say is that's kind of a sad thing when the person buys something and doesn't realize that they actually missed the journey. And then there's a rebirth. Well, you've got your black belt, and a lot of people at that point, they don't really think about it. They actually are right away, once they get home, once they start seeing what the black belt means to them, they start thinking, well, what's next? Nice thing with martial arts is what's next is more learning. It's also the next thing that happens. A lot of people talk about, well, the hero gets to the end, and then he goes home and he's happily ever after. And for some people, that's it. They got their black belt. They're happy. They're going home. They have an achievement. And let's be honest, someone who gets a black belt, that's their achievement. And that might be it. Maybe it's just they return home and they live happily ever after. But for some of us, what ends up happening next is, well, we've now crossed over to another level. We know where we were before and where we are now. And we might see where we want to go next. Some of us may want to go to Okinawa, like I did, or some of us may want to go travel to California and train with other random people in different martial arts, like I did in Off the Rails. A lot of people do this. It's not just me. There's a lot of people who use martial arts as a way to travel, of meeting people. But one of the other things that can happen is, as you get your shodan, you can actually start training, and you look, and you remember the person who helped you get to where you are. And you still respect them, and you're still having them help you do different things, but now you have another thing that happens. You look back down, and what you see is you see the next person who is on their first step, has left the ordinary world and is thinking of an adventure and crossed that threshold where they're going to do martial arts. And as a black belt, you actually can see this person as the person you were when you first came in. And you can end up becoming that person's mentor, his senpai, and help him achieve what you did. That's when I say about, karate actually matches the hero's quest. That's what I mean is you actually have all these different steps. Ironically, if you really think about it, you can actually break this apart even more like it. You can say the ordinary world is when you first walk into the dojo. The call to adventure is when you get your ninth cue. Your crossing the threshold can be when you get your eighth cue. You then have your friends when you get your seventh cue, and you go down the list until finally you get your black belt, and that's when you actually reach the ultimate goal. Well, I hope this made some sense to you, and that you enjoyed it. Next week, I will probably put something on interviews, an interview I did a while back ago. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you enjoy this. And if there's any questions, please write them down on the comments so I can answer you. If there's any type of video you would like me to talk about, I would. And I guess this is me signing off and telling you to have a nice day.